Welcome, everybody, to the third episode of the TheSideQuesters podcast. I'm Ryan McNeal, and I'm joined by my host, Justin Staggs. We're about to talk about the news and the topics of the day, but before we get into that, let's talk about some of the stuff we've been doing. What have you been up to, Justin?
I have been playing. I picked up the demo of Daemon Machina. It's a Switch title that's kind of reminiscent of Zone of the Enders. It's kind of like a mech battle game that's kind of fast paced. And it's really cool. It's pretty different.
Was that a demo or was it early access?
Maybe both. So it said you could download the demo, but your progress could carry over if you bought the full game. So kind of like a little bit above both. Like it kind of gives you a taste of it, and then if you decide to buy it, you don't have to replay that stuff.
Okay. And what'd you think of it? What'd you think of this small sample?
It was cool. It was they don't make many games like this anymore. And Zone of the Enders was probably one of my favorite series growing up. I think what they were able to do as far as mech combat games was awesome. And I think Daemon Machina is definitely following that legacy. It's a fast-paced kind of mech game. You got your missiles, you got your like strafing. It's definitely got that little bit of a Japanese design flair to it. So kind of absurd in some parts, but not too crazy. But it's pretty cool, and it's actually kind of neat that I can play this while I'm on the road or wherever I have my Switch. But I've also been playing Apex Legends like the rest of the world. Apparently, that game's pretty popular right now.
It's been holding strong over the weeks it's been released.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still beating Fortnite on Twitch, but for the number of viewers, it's been holding above Fortnite lately. And as somebody who just isn't a big fan of battle royale games, it's never really appealed to me. This has, for some reason. I don't know if it's kind of because of how they've designed it. It's a mixture of it's a mixture. It's like a mixture of a couple different game types or games in general. So it's like Overwatch mixed with Fortnite in the sense that you're having the battle royale side of Fortnite, but you're having the character classes of and the character personalities of Overwatch. So in Fortnite, you play a regular avatar that you can customize. There's no difference to your avatar. Your abilities are all the same, or what guns you can find, all the same that anybody else can find. But in Apex Legends, every character has different abilities, and they have strengths and weaknesses, and they actually have personalities. They talk to you. They talk in game. They talk to each other. But one of the coolest things in Apex Legends, not only is it in the Titanfall universe, but what Respawn has done is kind of added new mechanics to the whole battle royale genre. They introduced this new system called the ping system, and it's a really quick way for you to talk to your teammates and let them know of various things in the game. So if you point your mouse or your controller cursor at a weapon on the ground, your character will say, "There's an R99 over here." Or if you point it at a health pack and hit the button, "There's a health pack over here." Or if you see an enemy and you point it at the enemy, your character will go, "Spotted an enemy over there," and it'll ping it on the map so you see where your teammates are talking about. And it's just a really efficient, cool way to communicate, especially when maybe not everybody has a microphone or where you're trying to get the point across. and it's a very fast-paced game, so something like that is really cool, and I think it's really different, and I think it's apparent because after Apex came up with this idea, Fortnite added it to its next update. So I mean, it's pretty interesting. I like it. Never thought I'd be saying that about
that sounds very helpful.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be saying that about a battle royale game, but it definitely helps to play with friends. Like I've joined a couple matches where nobody was on that I knew, and I tried to solo it, and it's definitely a lot less enjoyable. So definitely one of those games where if you have a couple buddies, because it's a 3-man battle royale team. So like there's a team of 20 teams, and each team has 3 people in it. So you can actually like comp your team to be beneficial. So you can have somebody who can spot enemies in smoke. Then you have one person that's a healer, and then another person who's more offense oriented or defensive oriented. Like can pop a shield for the whole team so they don't get hit, or can pop smoke so you can run through a big open field without being seen. It's really cool. I'm really digging it. So yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Oh, cool. Well, I've only really played one game in the past week, and that's Anthem.
What platform are you playing on?
I'm playing on PlayStation 4.
Okay, cool. Are you playing alone, or are you playing with anybody else?
I've been mostly playing alone, but I have played a few times with some friends.
Nice. I definitely heard it's a game that's better appreciated with friends.
Yeah, it's definitely designed for playing with your friends, but it has that kind of multiplayer design where you're never really alone, but if you're not playing with a friend specifically, it still kind of feels like you're playing alone, though. It's kind of weird in that aspect.
I don't know. I heard somebody describe it as Destiny, but you're Iron Man, basically.
Yeah, it has strong gameplay mechanics and very good gunfighting. That feels just as good as Destiny in that aspect, and the fact that you can fly adds a fun variable to the gameplay. And just being able to mow down tons of random aliens and outlaws and whatever, it is a lot of fun.
Now, how's the story to that? Is there a big focus on story to Anthem? Because they kind of teased a lot of that in the previews and the teaser videos. Is there end game to it? Is there actually story to it? Have you beat the actual story?
There is a legitimate story to it. There is an end game, and I think a lot of people liked the story. For myself, I thought it was take it or leave it. And that's kind of one of the problems with the game, is that not necessarily the story, but the way that you tackle the story. So what I mean by this is, if you're doing like the 3rd mission in the game, right? And you join up with a friend who's playing like the 6th mission in the game, you'll be brought to that 6th mission where you'll see cutscenes for that mission and everything. And it will kind of take you out of place in where you are in your story. So when you see all that kind of stuff happen that you haven't really worked your way up to, it kind of jumbles the story a little bit and makes it a little incohesive. However, if you manage to avoid that, the story is understandable. It just isn't quite as thrilling as you would hope from a BioWare game.
Yeah, you think BioWare, you think grand, epic, huge, big, and that's kind of where they, at least the kind of game I'm under the impression that's the kind of game it was from the trailers and how they've pitched it and sold it to gamers is this big epic conquest that you can do with your friends. And some people are kind of let down with that. And I feel that kind of echoes it has a lot of similarities for when the first Destiny dropped. People just had a different idea of what the game was going to be than what was presented to them.
Yeah. And one of the issues I have too with it is is in Fort Tarsis, where that's basically where the story plays out. You're supposed to talk to all these different NPCs, right? And in BioWare fashion, they give you choices for things to say. However, those choices don't really do anything. If you select one choice, it's not going to really affect the story at all. Unlike how it would say in Mass Effect. And that was very disappointing to me.
Yeah, I think it just comes around to the kind of game it is, to be honest. It's kind of like it's been designed as a games as service type of game. And I think when they do that, there's some sacrifices that I think a lot of developers that are making these kinds of games haven't figured out how to kind of get around. And some of that is the more personal aspect to the decisions you've made in the game and how that reflects on the gamer's end and how that also ties into other people's experiences with the game. So it's a hard problem to solve. I mean, I think any developer that kind of tackles that is kind of facing the same challenges that the games like Destiny and Anthem have come across.
The developers are going to have to work on that and work on that fast, especially the loading, because there's just so many times that you run into the loading screen. It's kind of ridiculous.
Well, that's kind of like a BioWare thing, isn't it? Remember the elevators in the original Mass Effect? They were like so slow, but they were actually like loading screens basically because it was loading the next area. And you're like, there's a lot of elevators in the world of Mass Effect.
Yeah. And I just kind of worry that a lot of the people that are playing Anthem are going to be kind of swayed away from it once The Division comes around, which comes out later this month.
Yeah, and I think at least from the first Division, it had a rocky start too. But the developers stuck by it. They produced a lot more content, fixed a lot of the issues. Kind of the same thing that Bungie has done with Destiny, to be honest. But now they're having round 2 at it, and I'm kind of excited for the Division. I'm not going to lie, because I think they've learned from some of their mistakes they made the first go around, and hopefully it'll be a little bit of a smoother launch this time. And I'm excited for it. It looks cool.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've done this week is I saw Alita Battle Angel.
Oh, nice. How was that? I haven't seen it yet. I think we're going to go in a couple days to go check it out. So, but I remember watching the anime as when I was in high school. And I remember reading, God, I don't know. I must have been like a senior in high school when the talks of a movie came out. So this is like a project that's been in limbo in Hollywood for a while.
So I guess I'll put it this way: it's a fun movie. It's fun to experience.
And I think that's cool though. I think the movies that decide to try to do that are awesome. Like they're not really gunning for Oscars. They're just gunning to entertain people who are sitting down to watch it.
Yeah, so it's I would say it's a good movie. The big problem with it, however, is the pacing, because they have to fit.
It's too slow
so
or
much.
too fast?
It's too fast, because obviously, since it's a adaptation from a manga and everything, there's so much story that has to be told before you can get to the actual thick of the plot and everything, right?
Right. So they kind of have to shoehorn it in real quick, kind of like what they did with Ghost in the Shell, in a sense, I'd feel.
Still have not seen that. I need to go and see
You know what? That movie got a lot of hate, and I personally enjoyed it. You know, you're taking a franchise, a niche franchise, and you're trying to adapt it to audiences that will enjoy it, to multiple different kind of audiences. The studio had to make something that people who have never heard of Ghost in the Shell would want to buy a ticket and go see, and people who have seen Ghost in the Shell, and they want to see it. So for what it was worth, I actually really enjoyed it, and I think Scarlett Johansson did a pretty good job as the Major. So if Alita's kind of in that sense, and like you said, they had to squeeze a lot of story and kind of like gloss over things or change a few things for the sake of a 2-hour movie. But I was entertained for those 2 hours.
Good. Yeah, I'll have to definitely check it out. But yeah, so basically what I was saying about Alita is just that because of the fact that they had to rush so many things and everything, some of the like payoffs didn't seem as impactful as they probably should have. But
Gotcha.
Like, it's amazing. The imagery in the movie is absolutely stunning. The action is incredible. And yeah, it's just a really fun experience.
Well, sweet. I'm excited to check it out on Tuesday. So we'll have to touch base next week and see if I have the same feelings.
And I don't know if you're one of those people who were freaked out by the eyes. I personally wasn't, but
I've seen the trailers and it kind of threw me off because, well, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to pay homage to the anime and the fact that she's an android. But like, I think I'll just have to see the movie before I like put my final thoughts on it. I'm sure there's reasons behind it, and you know, I mean, I'll have to check it out. So,
all right. So moving on, we'll get to the news here. So first up, we have Square Enix disables streaming for Left 4 Live after Rocky launched in Japan. This article is from Game Informer from Elise Favis. And according to the article, Left 4 Live has been out in Japan for a few days now, but it's been having a rocky debut, leaving fans worried about its Western launch. According to Silicon Era, Japan-based players were able to stream everything outside of Left Alive's cutscenes when it released on February 28th. Now streaming has been disabled on PS4. Left Alive is also selling for nearly half off on Amazon Japan, and has an average rating of 1.8 out of 5 stars on the retailer website. User reviews reflect issues relating to everything from graphics to controls. Oh, it sounds like Left Alive is not that great of a game.
I haven't played it, but I know that the source material it's based off of, Front Mission, Front Mission has been around for a while, so maybe it's just a lot of passionate fans. And I'm not saying the game isn't bad, because it very well could be. I haven't got a chance to try it, but when you're having issues with it being critically panned so bad that you have to pull it from your streaming service and then nix the price in half, maybe it's a bad game. But I know some fandoms can be really vocal in their respective fandoms, basically. So
I do think it's especially telling that they took measures to silence the crowd by getting rid of the ability to stream on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, that's a little sketchy, but you know, this is kind of like the age we're living in. Especially, it's kind of scary when you think about all these game companies that are looking at streaming as the future. You're just kind of like, oh well, if we all say your game is bad, are you just gonna like not let people play the game they bought?
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting conversation going forward, because that definitely does fall under the realm of censorship, of being able to just silence any kind of criticism of a game.
Right.
But I guess that's a conversation to be had later.
We'll see how it plays out. We'll see if they. I'll have to do a little bit more looking into it, but never bodes well. It's unfortunate when you see a really respected developer like Square Enix kind of go through something like this. So
yeah. Oh, next up on the list is the PlayStation Vita. PlayStation Vita production has officially ended in Japan, so it's finally happened.
I feel like it should have happened a couple of years ago. Not gonna lie.
It kind of had its swan song years ago, and there is no way it was going to come back.
I feel like the PlayStation Vita was trying to do what the Switch could, or the Switch is doing, but I feel like people just reacted to Nintendo a lot better. I think just because of the IPs that Nintendo has, people love their Pokemon, people love Mario, people just love those IPs, and I think that carries a lot of weight behind it. And I think the implementation and the Switch is just hands down a lot better than what the Vita ever could do. And it's not knocking Sony or the Vita. It's kind of one of those things where I think the Vita was way before its time. I think it tried to do a lot of stuff that the Switch is doing, but I don't think gamers were really ready for it.
Well, it's kind of a twofold problem in my mind, because it really tried to accomplish that bringing your console games with you kind of attitude with it, and it never quite managed to do that. But also, it was because PlayStation just failed to provide adequate support for the Vita during the beginning of its lifespan, and in the middle of its lifespan, and in the final part of its lifespan.
Yeah. That, you're kind of onto something, because like when the Vita came out, like you're like, oh, cool, the Vita, and then like you never heard anything else about it. Like it wasn't really touched at E3 at all. It never really got the limelight. Like it kind of was like the redheaded stepchild. They were just kind of like, just go sit in the corner while the big boys play. Your bigger brother, the PlayStation, he's gonna go outside and you have to stay inside. So
it like drip fed games to gamers who bought the system, and then those games kind of became fewer and far in between, and it just got to the point where it was just basically games weren't specifically being developed for the Vita. They were being developed for the PlayStation 4 and were they had the ability to be played on the Vita as well.
Yeah,
So
it's
it was
just like
basically-
it's just like one of those. It's just like one of those things. It's just there was just no really popular support for it. So how do you convince developers or more so publishers to invest into a game that's not going to have a good return on an investment? So it was kind of, I hate to say it, but it was kind of just doomed from the start.
it's a real shame because it was a real nice piece of hardware.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
if
really
you've
was.
ever-
I totally agree.
Have you ever played with one?
Yeah, actually, I had a Vita, and I didn't have a Vita. I've used a Vita, and then I had the PSP before the Vita. Oh, that was a regretful purchase.
just imagine all the people who ended up buying the PSP Go.
Oh God! Or the people who bought PSP movies. Man, people were like, "Oh, dude, it's the future, man!" And then like they come on these little small discs. It's gonna be great. Like we're gonna have all these movies. I think I bought like one movie for it. I was like, "This is a waste."
Do they still make UMDs?
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I think they're like collector's items now.
Wow. Uh, well, that's kind of a sad story and everything. But let's move on to a happier story. Horizon Zero Dawn has sold more than 10 million copies worldwide in 2 years. And this story is from VG 24/7 by Stephanie Nunley. So Horizon Zero Dawn hit a new sales milestone. It was released 2 years ago today and has since sold over 10 million copies worldwide. The sales figure was announced today by Guerrilla Games. That's up from 7.6 million reported last year, which means it has sold approximately 2.4 million additional units. When released, the title was the best-selling first-party new IP launch on the PlayStation 4 to date, when it sold 2.6 million units during the first 2 weeks of release.
Yeah, so I mean that's cool. I'm really happy for Guerrilla Games. I think Horizon was kind of a gamble. Most original IPs are. So to see that be so successful, even years after its release, is super cool. It was a great game. It was a great experience, and I think that just solidifies Sony's commitment to creating really good single player experiences. Like there's a market for it. There's people who want these experiences, like in Assassin's Creed, Red Dead, Horizon. These are just really good single player experiences. And when you see something sell 10 million copies in 2 years, that's just that's good. It's good for the industry and it's good for gamers. And I feel that's good for Guerrilla Games because they basically almost get a blank check for whatever's next. And that's cool because they're really a forefront and pusher for technology and the kind of games that PlayStation players play.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Guerrilla Games. Horizon Zero Dawn was my game of the year in 2017, and it became one of my favorite games of all time, like in my top 10 favorite games of all time. So to hear that it had such success, brand new IP having that much success is just great. And I hope that it encourages studios to try to do something new. So I guess moving on to some E3 news. Cyberpunk 2077 is expected to be at E3 this year.
Duh.
Yeah.
I would hope so. You don't drop the trailer and the gameplay trailers they dropped last year to just not show up this year.
True. And so this article comes from Game Informer. A lot of specifics about this year's E3 are in flux, especially since Sony has pulled out of the show. That announcement has increased speculation about the show's necessity and in the industry, as well as about what games we can expect to see this year. However, it seems that Cyberpunk 2077 will definitely make a showing. And I would say that because of the fact that Sony's not going to be at E3 this year, I think that the ESA is thanking its lucky stars that CD Projekt Red is going to be showing this game off once again, because of the fact that it's such a highly anticipated game.
Yeah,
it will bring a lot of excitement.
I think it's going to be a great game, but I feel I've grown to try to keep my hype expectations in check, just because I know sometimes people can just really ramp something up, and then when something comes along and it's not as good as it was at an E3 demo, people are so quick to demonize and basically crap on a developer. But I think Cyberpunk, it's got good pedigree. It's coming from a really well-respected studio. They've had a lot of experience making these kinds of games, and they're doing it in a completely different genre. I mean, maybe not so genre. They're making a first-person shooter basically, which is something they haven't done. But they're adding their years of RPG experience behind them to this world. So I think it'll be a big showing. It'll be really cool to see it. And to touch on the fact that we feel like E3 is necessary. I think a show like E3 is necessary. I think it's necessary for the health of the industry. In this day and age with news coming so fast and streaming and all that, it gets questioned whether or not it's necessary, because people can just watch their respective, keynotes and conferences. But I feel like the show itself is necessary for the health of the industry, to get people excited, to give a chance for, developers and publishers to meet, which was kind of what E3 was originally designed for. Which is why it was private in the first place. It was designed for people to come and talk business and get hyped about what other developers are working on, and then show that to the press. So I think E3 is necessary, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, if you recall, people have been talking about the death of E3 for like the last 10 years. So I think it'll be around 10 years from now. May not be in the same place, may not be in the same area, may not even be the same kind of show, but it'll be around.
Well, you may have your hype train in check, but mine's full steam ahead, man. This is like my perfect game. This is like the game that I've been waiting for years. But about what you were saying with E3, I also think that it is important. It may need to do a little bit of changing to help keep it up with the times. Sean Layden said something about how he would like to see the ESA change E3 in a way where it's not just about new game announcements going on every single year, and just it being more of a celebratory type of event where gamers can kind of, just appreciate games and everything. Since nowadays you can just get all the news that you need from basically like YouTube and other outlets online and everything. I don't know if it needs to change to that extent, but I do know that it may need to change venues in order to accommodate the numbers of people they're trying to invite to the event nowadays.
Yeah, it's definitely just getting bigger and bigger, especially with opening itself to the public. So they definitely, but like I totally agree with you that it's necessary for it's definitely necessary for a way for people to appreciate games, and I think that needs to be the show's focus going forward. And I think it's kind of already going there. There's just kind of the growing pains going along with it because. Like Sony's presentation last year where they had like people off-site moving in between tents. That was just kind of weird during like their conference, and you're like, just stick to one stage, guys.
Yeah, I heard people at E3 were saying how big of a mess it all was. Do you think that that E3 should adopt more of like a Gamescom kind of?
Yeah, I think that would be good for E3 and the game industry in general. Just more of an appreciative, celebratory, all things gaming. From the games themselves to the people in the games to the developers to the publishers to what everything has been spawned out of gaming, from esports to streamers. Like, I really think it should be a celebration of games and gamers, and I think it'll get there. I think it'll take maybe a couple years before it finds its footing in this new media environment that it's found itself in. But I don't think E3 is going anywhere. I really don't.
Yeah, same here. So on to the second to last topic. THQ Nordic apologizes after hosting an AMA on 8chan. And we don't have to dive too deep into this, but it's basically just THQ, for some reason or another, THQ Nordic's PR director thought it would be a great idea to host an AMA on a website that was blacklisted by Google for the fact that it's associated with child pornography and racism and all that stuff and everything. It's basically considered a more lawless version of 4chan. And I
sounds like the perfect place to do an AMA, to be honest. Come on, right? Like, how dense do you have to be to think? I just want to know who's ever on the executive team or the PR team at THQ Nordic is just like, you know what? Sounds like a great idea. Just sit down. Let me lay it on you. 8chan. Like, there's been a lot of PR mess ups in the game industry over the years, but I can almost honestly say this tops most of them, if not all of them.
And the guy didn't get fired and everything. He just posted up a Twitter apology saying that he did not do his due diligence, but the responses he gave kind of suggest that he did know what was to be expected from this group of people.
Oh, he knew. I mean, you're not stupid, dude. Like, you're not stupid. You're in your job for a reason. So why would you even think this is a great idea in the first place? Like, no, just there's really no explanation or excuse for the level of just the level of fuck uppery, basically. Like, I can't even comprehend this. Like, I remember when I read it, I was like, "Are you serious? Like, this is a real thing, right? Like, this is actually happening."
Yeah, people actually thought that somebody had hacked the Twitter account of THQ, and nope,
Yeah,
that wasn't the case.
yeah, for good reason, because nobody likes that site. Not even Google.
Yeah, and what's even worse is that this this kind of slanders the many developers under the THQ Nordic name.
Yeah, it's just it's a shit show all around. You're basically all I remember seeing a lot of the developers coming out and saying, we don't share the same views as our publisher." Like,
Yeah, it's such a terrible situation. I feel so bad for those developers that they have to be associated with something like that now, and it's not going to be something that people forget immediately.
no, not at all. No, like this is a big PR mess up, dude. Like, I don't even know how they can really bounce back from this. I mean, they probably have people pulling out money, like probably developers trying to get out of contracts. Like, I have no doubt that like this is just an entire mess up on their end.
Yeah, it's just all kinds of stupid.
We'll just rank it up there with like the worst thing. Like, we all say EA's evil. Well, they never did an AMA on 8chan, so.
Yeah, I guess we have to give them credit for that. And so for our last story, the announcement of Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Yeah,
Nintendo,
it's a big deal.
they just announced their big console exclusive for the Switch, and it's the first main Pokemon game for a console.
Yeah, and it's kind of like in the classic vein of Red and Blue and all the other Pokemon games thereafter. It's just there's two different versions. To be able to collect all the Pokemon, you're going to have to either trade with somebody who has a different version or buy both. And it's kind of cool. I'm excited to see where they take it, because I've loved what Nintendo. Not that it's Nintendo, it's Game Freak that makes Pokemon, but there's been a lot of franchise redevelopment with Nintendo, from Yoshi to Mario to any number of franchises with Mario Kart, Mario Party. So it's really cool to see that what they're going to do with Pokemon, and now that this is like their AAA title, it's not Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu. It's like it's their big push into the console.
And I have to ask you this question: which of the 3 starter Pokemon would you choose?
Oh, dude, I don't know. To be honest, I'd have to like look at what the 3 starters were. It's I'm excited to play it. I don't know. I know it's in an entirely like new region of the world, the Pokemon universe. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited to just kind of run around and check it out.
I guess it's called the Galar region. Yeah, it looks like a interesting addition to the Pokemon franchise that people will either love or hate. We'll see.
Well, I kind of want to know the naming behind it. A lot of people were knocking it for just being so generic with Sword and Shield, but I'm sure there's something behind why they're called Sword and Shield. So I'm sure it has something to do with the story of the game.
Yeah, I bet there is. And I think it's have like a steampunk kind of setting in it or something like that.
Was it? I don't know if I got that. I don't know, but it'd be cool if it was. Maybe I just didn't watch all the trailers, but I'll have to check it out. If it's steampunk, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, it's time for the main topic of the show. And our topic for this week is, what do you think are the most underrated games, or what game do you think doesn't get enough recognition?
Ooh,
yeah, if you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You go first, man, because I'll have to think about this, to be honest.
Okay, so the games that I think are the most underrated, I would say Heavenly Sword and AMC Devil May Cry.
Is that really underrated though? I feel like Devil May Cry is pretty poppin', franchise.
I think a lot of people either have not played it, or a lot of DMC fans have said that they didn't like it and everything, but they just didn't give the game a chance, especially right when the game came out. People had, I don't know if you remember, but people were all in an uproar about, Dante's look and everything like that, and how they're kind of changing the gameplay to something a little more accessible for the general person, the general player, and everything. But the thing is that a lot of the things that they were doing in the game was interesting, especially the inclusion of changing environments and everything, having the environment be an enemy against you. And it was some of the...
I as somebody who's never played any DMC games, you might be onto something, because I've honestly never played any of them. So
yeah, it's the game that got me interested in playing other Devil May Cry games, just to see what those games have to offer as well.
Yeah, to speak of Ninja Theory games, I feel like a game that's awfully underrated, never got really its recognition, was Enslaved: Odyssey to the West.
Yes, so, that's a game that I love.
Right, it's a great game, but I don't think it got its time to shine. Really, it kind of a lot of people looked it over, or it doesn't really talked about a whole lot. It was a great game. I mean, Andy Serkis was in it, for crying out loud. Like, you don't get Andy Serkis without some pedigree there. And it was a good game. It was really well done. And another franchise I feel like maybe doesn't get a whole lot of recognition, even though I don't know if it's really underrated, but I don't talk to a whole lot of people that are all like, oh yeah, this is just great. And that's like Infamous. I feel like Infamous was a cool series, and there just hasn't been a whole lot since Second Son.
You think that Infamous is the series, or that Infamous Second Son was underrated?
I'll even go as far as to say Infamous Second Son. I mean, I think it was well reviewed, but I don't think a lot of people played it, to be honest. But it was a great game, especially right when the PS4 was getting its footing.
It released during an interesting time because there wasn't a whole lot to play on the PlayStation 4 right when it came out. It was just that game, Resogun, and that Compulsion Games game I can't remember the name of. It basically dealt with puzzles and shadows. What was that game called?
Oh yeah. What was that called?
Oh, what was it?
I know what you're talking about, though. I know what you're talking about.
Contrast.
Yeah, that's what it was. Contrast of light and dark. Yeah, because you use the shadows as a puzzle mechanic, a gameplay mechanic.
That was a fun game too.
Yeah, that was kind of an underrated game. I don't know if it was like groundbreaking, but it was cool.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I felt like Heavenly Sword was an underrated game.
Yeah, that was Ninja Theory 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
We should just make this like underappreciated Ninja Theory games.
True. But yeah,
that was PS3, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was like a release title for the PlayStation 3, wasn't it?
It was close around there. It wasn't exactly a release title, I don't think.
Okay.
But it was before PlayStation had the DualShock for the PlayStation 3 controllers. And it tried to make use of the 6-axis controls of the.
Oh yeah, I remember that, and just
and
like this is stupid.
Yeah, and I think that played a large role in why people didn't like the game more than what they did. And I definitely wouldn't mind seeing a remaster of that game.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm not sure if there's a big push for it, though, but I think that's the kind of definition of an underappreciated game. So,
yeah. I don't know. Can you think of any other games that you think are underrated?
Not off the top of my head. Sunset Overdrive by Insomniac Games.
I'll say that's underrated.
Yeah, like it was a really well put together game. Didn't have many bugs, if any, and just overall, just a cool title. So, had a cool story, had a great art direction. It was fluid, it was solid, and it just kind of came and went, and you didn't really hear about it.
That was by Insomniac, right?
Yeah. So, and they just released Spider-Man. So,
I remember them saying something like they were really disappointed that Sunset Overdrive didn't do better than what it did because they really liked that game.
Yeah, they poured their heart into it, man. They really tried, and I think I played it. It was a good game. It was fun, but I just don't think it got the love it deserved.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. With that, I guess we'll move on to the indie spotlight for the month. This is where we talk about an indie game that we think you guys should try out or look forward to playing. And for this month, I chose The Occupation. The Occupation is a single-player narrative game by White Paper Games. It's a game where you play as a journalist, and you basically are trying to put together a story in order to stop terrorist crime from happening. And this all takes place within 4 hours real time. So everything you do obviously takes time, and you have to basically manage your time in a way where it allows you to uncover everything you need to find and to write the story that you need to write in order to stop the event. And it seems like a very interesting game that kind of looks like, aesthetically, it kind of looks like BioShock Infinite. Just imagine that without like the gunfighting and everything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely got a BioShock feel, at least from the trailer.
Yeah. And so that comes out on March 5th for PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One.
Yeah, definitely you should check it out. At least check out the trailer. It's definitely a different type of game that's normally in the spotlight. Definitely looks more like a thriller, and it just looks cool. It's got a great art direction. It's got what appears to be really good voice acting and a really cool gameplay mechanic. So I'm looking forward to trying it.
Yeah. And so now we'll go on to the releases coming out this week. Some of them have already come out. Some of them are coming up. And I guess we can go back and forth reading these off.
No, you go for it.
Okay, so the first one is Awesome P. It's already out, and it's out for all systems, including the PS Vita, actually. And and it's a platform. It's a side-scrolling platformer in the vein of like an original Game Boy type game, and yeah, it looked interesting.
Yeah, it looks cool. I don't know if I'll get around to playing it because I got some play, but I'm definitely digging the art direction and like the nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
And then, what's next?
Next is Dead or Alive 6, and this one's already out. It comes out for.
Is there like a really hardcore following for Dead or Alive, or I feel like it's just one of those franchises that just kind of fizzled away almost in the big grand scheme of fighters.
I mean, there's people who play it, but not for the reasons that, they kind of want people to be playing it for. I mean, those physics, man, am I right? But
yeah, we'll go with the physics. Isn't the guy that like develops that like really eccentric too? Doesn't he like always wear like sunglasses and a leather jacket? Is that the guy I'm thinking of?
Maybe.
Yeah, no, he's like a really like he's a Japanese developer, but he's like very I don't even know how to describe it. Just eccentric. He's just like a weird dude.
Yeah.
But like you look at him and you're like, oh, that's definitely the kind of guy that develops this game.
Yeah, and I think they've with 6 they're trying to appeal to the fighting crowd a little bit more, and they've also they're trying to get more into the esports field and everything. So they've included costumes that kind of cover up some of the girls and everything a little bit more and everything like that. So
yeah, I feel like that's just going to be dominated by like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter.
Yeah, and Super Smash.
Yeah, the Ultimate. Smash too.
But yeah, anyway, next up is The Occupation. As I said before, it's coming out March 5th for PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. Left Alive is coming out March 5th for PC and PS4. Let's hope that it's better than what people have been saying. And then
I mean, I don't know if I'll play it, but I'll definitely maybe watch a few Let's Plays and kind of get a gist of it to touch base on it next week.
I think I might do the same. Just watch some people play through it. And then last but not least is Devil May Cry 5. It comes out March 8th for PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One.
And you're really looking forward to that, right? This is Ninja Theory developed too?
Well, this one's by the original developers.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Ninja Theory.
Not for this particular one. Ninja Theory only did the DMC Devil May Cry.
Gotcha. Well, I think the only... Gotcha. I feel like the only one I'm really going to play out of this list, and it's just not a knock to the rest of the games. It's just my personal preference and what I have time for. But I definitely going to try to check out The Occupation.
Me too.
So we can talk about that next podcast. So,
yeah. Well, until then, if you like this podcast, please follow the show on SoundCloud and or Spotify and share it with your friends. If you want to follow me, I write about video games and technology on inverse.com. Feel free to check out my articles or follow me on Twitter at Ryan McNeal 24. And you can check out my YouTube channel at EMCEE123. Where can they find you, Justin?
I'm in a couple places on the internet. You can find me on Twitter, writer Rohan. It's a writer with a Y. And sometimes I post articles. I'm a freelance writer and video producer on Arch City Media. You can check me out there. I post all kinds of articles related to pop culture stuff, video games, movies, Comic-Con conventions, things like that. So you can find me there, and yeah.
All right, and that's the end.
All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
See ya.